In today's Wellness Trends on Trial episode, we're looking at intermittent fasting. This is a strategy that's been widely praised for everything from weight loss to longevity. But as with any trend, the real question isn't just what it promises, it's how it actually plays out in real life, especially for women. I'll be sharing key insights on intermittent fasting to help you determine if it's right for you. Will it really protect and expand your energy or leave you feeling drained and depleted? We're diving into it all in this episode. Welcome to Wellness for High Performers, where ambitious people discover the path to sustainable wellness that actually feels good so they can build the dream without burning out. I'm your host, Erica Jones. I'm a wellness strategist and entrepreneur, and I help high performers create massive momentum by weaving wellness into their daily life. Hey there, I'm your host, Erica Jones. I'm a wellness strategist and entrepreneur, and I help high performers create energy and momentum by weaving wellness into their daily life. And this episode is part of my Wellness Trends on Trial series, where I evaluate popular health trends through the lens of energy, longevity, and real life practicality, because not every wellness trend deserves your time or your attention or your mental bandwidth. And today, like I mentioned, I'm talking about intermittent fasting. This wellness strategy has been around several years and it's really popular. But like anything related to your health routine, it is an investment of your energy. It requires intention, it requires planning. And with the wellness market being more crowded than ever, sometimes it can feel hard to know what's truly helpful and what's just hype. So let's jump in. Here's what intermittent fasting does really well and why it got so popular. But before I get into all of that, I do want to say that I'm kind of framing this episode looking at intermittent fasting through the lens of a woman. I think that men, we've really established that this is very beneficial for them. And so I really want to pinpoint this particular episode to focusing on women. So I want to keep that in mind as we move through the content. But here's what IF intermittent fasting does really well and why it got so popular. It improves insulin sensitivity. So I'm sure you've heard of insulin before and you know that it's what regulates glucose or sugar in your body. Insulin sensitivity is the measure of how well your body responds to insulin. So insulin sensitivity is really about blood sugar regulation. And when your body is more sensitive to insulin, which is a good thing, it's better at regulating blood sugar. This means that you have more stable energy throughout the day instead of peaks and crashes. And it can also help to eliminate food cravings and make you less dependent on sugar or caffeine for energy. So that's the first benefit of intermittent fasting is that it improves insulin sensitivity. Secondly, intermittent fasting can also support fat loss. This is a big reason why people try this strategy in the first place. And it is probably one of the go to strategies that my husband, Dr. Jones, and I used pretty routinely when we were consulting clients back in the early 2010s. We got really great results with it. But when you restrict your eating window, it can help to transition your body from being a sugar burner, which most people are, to a fat burner. And this isn't just about losing weight, though. It's about metabolic flexibility. This is how well can your body switch between burning sugar for fuel versus burning fat for fuel. So, as I mentioned, most people are regularly burning sugar for fuel, which makes it a little bit more challenging to burn fat for fuel and lose weight. So, the flexibility in your metabolism is an advantage because if a food source is not readily available, your body can still easily switch to fat burning mode. So, the signs of high metabolic flexibility are stable energy levels, an ability to go for longer periods without food, without feeling like a major energy crash or food cravings. And signs of low metabolic flexibility can be energy crashes, cravings, and or weight loss resistance. Intermittent fasting can definitely help with weight loss, but the bigger overarching picture is that it can improve metabolic flexibility. The other benefit of intermittent fasting is that it supports autophagy. This is cellular cleanup. This is a big one if you're interested in longevity and aging well. Autophagy is your body's cellular recycling system. So over time, your cells get overly stressed, they get worn out, they get damaged, and your body has a way of cleaning them up and reusing the good parts while getting rid of the pieces that are not needed. This whole process is called autophagy, and it improves cellular health, which is a key indicator for longevity and healthy aging. The other benefit of intermittent fasting, which is one a lot of people don't think about, is that it can help to create structure around food. This can be especially beneficial for high performers because decision fatigue is a real thing and it can deplete your energy. And so, by adding more structure to your meal times, you can help to eliminate some of the decision fatigue that you might experience around food during the day because you will have already solved the question of when am I eating? Intermittent fasting restricts your eating window to a 6, 8, 10, or 12-hour period of time. And in order to get the proper caloric intake during that period of time, you have to think ahead, you have to be intentional. This can also help you feel more disciplined around meal times if you just feel like you need more structure in this area. Research also shows that intermittent fasting can improve your immune system, it can improve your brain and your heart health, and even your physical performance. So, overall, when intermittent fasting is working for you, you feel like your energy stabilized, you may lose weight, you may improve cellular health, and feel like you have more structure around meals. But the key words are when it's working for you. There are some scenarios when intermittent fasting is less helpful and maybe even harmful. And for women in particular, this can get more nuanced. So, a lot of the research on intermittent fasting is mostly done on men and animals. Women in general tend to be underrepresented in fasting and metabolic research. So, this means that most of the mainstream advice that we're seeing that's widespread on the internet and social media is based on a research pool that's primarily made up of men. And this can be a problem because women's hormones are much more complex than men's. So when it comes to fasting, we have to think about it a little bit differently. And the first thing we have to think about is the fact that fasting is a stressor to the body. That is not inherently bad because you are stressing your body anytime you work out, when you're lifting weights, when you're going for a run. Those are stressors too. So, stress to the body isn't always a bad thing. But there are a few things that you want to think about if you're a woman considering intermittent fasting. So, the first thing to think about is your current stress load. So, fasting does increase cortisol, your body's stress hormone. So, if you're already really stressed out, fasting can just make you feel wired and tired and even disrupt your sleep. So, before deciding to fast, you want to think about how stressed am I in this season of my life? And how does what I'm currently experiencing in my day to day vary from what's typical? And I'll kind of unpack that a little bit. I will say that as a high performer, there's always a certain level of stress I'm working under throughout the day. And you may feel the same about this, but the stress that I'm working under throughout the day routinely, it's the kind of stress that I can thrive under. It's pushing to meet a deadline or there's an urgent request that's needed. It's moderated stress. It's not stress gone wild. So that's the kind of stress that I can work with and thrive under. And so a lot of high performers really work well in that environment. It helps me to get stuff done. So it's not to say that you can never feel any stress before you start to try an intermittent fasting schedule, but I would suggest comparing your current stress levels to what's typical for you. So I'll say that we recently went through a big water damage issue in our house. I've talked about it on this podcast recently. And the result was obviously remediation, repair, but we ended up doing a big kitchen renovation in the process. And I'm very happy with the final result, but this was a very stressful process. This was 4.5 months of trying to navigate without a true kitchen. And if my stress levels are normally at a 6 or a 7 out of 10 on a typical day before the water damage had ever happened, afterward, they went up to like 8 to 10 multiple days a week for 4 months. So it was super stressful. That was not a time for me to be trying to intermittent fast. So that's what I mean when I say compare your stress to what is normal and typical for you. I don't want you to feel like, oh, I can never have any stress to try intermittent fasting. I don't know anyone for whom that would be realistic, but you do want to make sure that you are not in a high stress season or you're not trying to navigate through a crisis or something that's really wearing on your nervous system. So, compared to your normal and not whether or not you feel stress ever at all. The second thing to consider is your hormones. For women who still have a menstrual cycle, if you're going to intermittent fast, it's recommended to do so during the follicular phase. That's the first half of the cycle. Because when you fast during that particular part of the cycle, it can help support the natural hormone cascade that's already occurring. But if you're going through perimenopause or menopause, that could definitely change. And I've seen very conflicting information about intermittent fasting and perimenopause and menopause. Some sources say that it can really help, while others say it can make symptoms a whole lot worse. So it really just depends on the person. I'll share a little bit of my experience. I intermittent fasted regularly all throughout my 30s. I'm 42 now, but I did notice a change in how I felt while fasting the older that I got. I just feel more hormonally sensitive now, and fasting these days tends to throw my hormones into a tailspin, which I obviously do not want. I've also noticed that eating a snack between 9 and 10 p.m. right before bed has been huge to help me stabilize my blood sugar and hormones. I think I'm a blood sugar sensitive person. I want to do a continuous glucose monitor trial just to see what it says about me, but I was waking up with brain fog and fatigue despite a really good night of sleep. And so after researching and just looking at information that could support me, I thought, well, maybe my blood sugar is crashing overnight. And so I started adding in this snack right before bed between 9 and 10 at night. I'm usually eating some protein, some healthy fat, some low sugar fruit. Like last night, I had some cheese and crackers and some blueberries. It's not a whole lot of food, but just enough, just like a little snack to get me through over the night because my body has been signaling to me that I need stability and not caloric restriction. Because the difference that I feel in the morning now is I feel much more energized to get up and go. I'm not dealing with, I think brain fog is too strong of a word, but I would have some cloudiness in my mental clarity that was annoying because I'm doing a lot of things for my health. And so when I started adding this snack before bed, it really helped to eliminate all of that. So, like I said, now I'm waking up with a lot more energy with this strategy versus the mental cloud that I was feeling by fasting in the 3 to 4 hours up until bedtime. And then obviously all through the night as well. So, hormones are definitely a consideration. And it's okay if something worked for you before, like this worked for me before intermittent fasting did, but it's not working anymore. So it's okay to shift and pivot your strategy. And I think for me too, mentally letting go of that was something that I had to just think about intentionally because intermittent fasting has been a big staple in my wellness journey. And it's been one of those things that has been positioned like, oh, this is what healthy people do. They do this. So by not doing it, I had to talk to myself like, this doesn't mean that you're not healthy. It just means that your needs have changed. And there's a shift there that you need to adjust to. So I just wanted to add that in there as well for anybody who may be hesitant to change or feel like a failure or like you've messed up in some way because you have to make some adjustments to your strategy. So, next thing to think about is under fueling. What I mean by under fueling is not getting enough macro and micronutrients. When your eating window is restricted, you have to be a lot more intentional about getting the proper amount of protein, fats, and vitamins and nutrients. High performing women are already more prone to under fueling, often due to the demands of juggling business and family life. You feel pressed for time. It's easy to skip breakfast or to rush through a low quality lunch. I know all of this and I still have to be super intentional about getting enough caloric intake throughout the day and refueling it periodically with healthy snacks and things like that. So if you combine habits of low caloric intake, if that's already your program, and then you combine that with intermittent fasting, it can translate into a big metabolic hit for you and also cause a lot of hormonal disruption, which obviously you don't want. So that's another thing to consider as well. So if you're currently intermittent fasting or you're thinking about trying it, here's some signs that this strategy may not be working for you. If you are chronically waking up exhausted, so with these signs and symptoms, I'm not talking about, oh, this happened like a one off or I got a bad sleep one night. I'm talking about a noticeable pattern of, hey, there's something wrong here because I am routinely experiencing these symptoms. So you may wake up exhausted. You may feel wired but tired, especially at night when it's time to go to bed. You may wake up in the middle of the night regularly. Again, not a big deal if it's a one off, but if this is a pattern that you're seeing and it's hard to get back to sleep, that could be a signal that it's not working for you. If your workouts are feeling harder or more exhausting when you're intermittent fasting, that could be a sign. Cycle irregularity is a big one, or feeling like you are dependent on caffeine and sugar to function. So you may be like, oh, sugar, why is that even being brought up with intermittent fasting? So you can still intermittent fast, but not have great metabolic control, if you will. Like your body could still be struggling metabolically. So you could be having food cravings or sugar cravings outside of your eating window. So if that's going on regularly and you're constantly thinking about food, that could be a sign that it's not working for you. I have to mention it's also contraindicated for women who are pregnant or nursing or for anyone with a history of eating disorders. So now that we've covered kind of the signs that it's not working, who does this really work well for? Well, if your stress load is stabilized, meaning you feel like the stress that you're experiencing from the day to day is manageable, you don't feel crushed by it, you don't feel overwhelmed by it, you could be a really great candidate for this. If your hormones are already in a stable place, you're not dealing with crazy fluctuations, that's helpful as well. And if you're already good about getting the right amount of caloric intake each day, you feel like you're in a good rhythm with your protein, your fat, the nutrients that you're eating each and every day, then it can work really well for you as well. And the final thing I'll mention is if you are sleeping well. So if you're already having good sleep, then great. Intermittent fasting can also work for you as well. But if any one of these things is super off, I'm not saying don't try it. It just may not be the best fit. So when you do it, or if you are currently already trying this strategy, some things to ask yourself are, am I feeling better or worse when I fast? Does my energy feel more stable when I'm fasting or does it feel volatile? And do I feel like this is improving my performance and recovery or is it making it worse? So, those are some things to help you evaluate whether or not this strategy is right for you and if it's working for you. And I'll leave you with this final thought because as I was creating this episode and the content, I feel like this is kind of embedded underneath. And it's the idea that more restriction is not necessarily always better. We've heard the phrase no pain, no gain. And sometimes we think that if our wellness journey doesn't hurt, we're not doing it right. But the truth is that sometimes the thing that you need is more support, not more limitations. So I wanted to leave you with that today, especially because I think high performers can wrestle with this mentality because we're so primed for excellence. But I hope this helps you, and I hope it helps you decide if intermittent fasting is right for you. I want to thank you so much for listening to Wellness for High Performers. And if this episode helped you, please take a moment to share it with a friend or colleague, or leave me a review wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want more support and to continue conversations like these, head to elevaze.com. That's ELEV as in victory, AYS.com. And join me inside the Elite Edge, my weekly inspiration email for high performers like you who want to thrive while they achieve. It's where I share insights you won't find anywhere else. Keep protecting your energy, keep honoring your well-being, and I'll see you in the next episode.